start video transmission, and here we go. Gabi, we are live.
It's official.
It's
We're live
official.
again.
We are live and alive.
Live and alive, thank God. And welcome everybody. I'm Gabi. This is Mateus. We are here in the second episode of our series of four different lives that we prepared carefully to demystify some things you heard about learning English and expose finally what nobody tells you about learning English, right? This episode is dedicated to instruct and clarify your ideas when it comes to learning grammar, studying grammar. And here we go. That's it. Hi, Mateus.
Hi, Gabi.
We hope that you enjoy this live, guys. If you have any concerns about grammar, please leave a comment already in the chat. Say hello, say that you are there. We want to know you are also alive watching us. And I would like to begin by asking you, Mateus, what exactly makes grammar a thing? Like, why is it a thing when we learn a language? Is it as important as everybody thinks it is?
Uh-huh. All right, Gabi, so let's begin. My first idea, my first commentary is about understanding the nature of grammar, because language precedes grammar and grammar succeeds language. So, because we have a language, we have grammar. Grammar is nothing more than what some academics identified, some patterns that academics identify, linguists identified in that language, um, based on how people use it. So, by people using the language, we can identify that some patterns exist, some patterns occur of when we use the language, how we use the language. So this combination of when we use the language and how we use the language is what grammar fundamentally is. Therefore, grammar is a combination of rules. It is the structure, it is the backbone of the language. It gives the language its form. Yes. So grammar, in a way, it is like the rules of traffic, right? That you are driving, and then you need to know what this sign represents, or when the traffic light is red, what you do and how you react to that. So grammar fundamentally is a series of rules that they structure the language. Nonetheless, we should remember that language generates grammar and not the opposite. We do not have grammar generating language. Grammar is a consequence of using the language.
Well, I love when you say that, because I know how important it is for everyone who's watching us and our alpinists as well, all the community online that follows us. I think they must know that. But why why are we saying that to them? Why are we saying that first there's the language and only then there's grammar? What is the importance of letting it really clear?
hmm there are several reasons, I would say, why that's important. One of them, it is to understand that grammar is relevant, yes, to the development of the languages. Getting in touch with grammar might help, but we should be careful not to let grammar limit our contact with the language, because first we've got the language, we've got words, we've got the vocabulary, expressions, we've got um, the possibility of auditory stimulus, visual stimulus. So, by the usage of language, we can also enhance our grammar. So, this is factor number one. Factor number two, it is simply to remember that we have passed through this process of, for example, since we are Brazilians, our mother language is Portuguese, right? Um, so it's Brazilian Portuguese.
Brazilian
Yes,
Portuguese.
and so when we were kids, when we were children, we didn't have a guidebook that every time we wanted to say something, we verified the manual, the grammar book, and then only then we would say something. No, we were seeing things mistakenly. We were maybe changing structures. We were improvising with what we have got, and then only when we were 7, 8, 9 years old, we began the study of the grammar, right? So first we learned how to speak, even though it was not perfect. We learned how to speak. So only after we increased our comprehension about the rules that guide the linguistic use.
And let's remember how it began to happen, right? I remember that, I don't know, I hope everyone's experience has been sort of like the same way, but when you're a kid and you're learning about grammar structures and you begin to study about it, or even before your first day at school, let's say when you are 6 or 5, I don't know, uh, your family tries to help you not to make so many mistakes in terms of grammar, right? I know that in our mother language it would be incorrect to construct the sentence like for me to do something, and this is correct in English, by the way, but for me to do, we should say in Portuguese for I to do, we use the subject pronoun instead. And I remember my family always telling me the right way, and they never said, oh, you cannot say for me to do, you cannot say this way, this is wrong, and say no to me, to my face. They would always tell me the correct way. And I think that that can be better, right, than being I don't know, being told that you are wrong
Yeah,
all the.
having the grammar shoved in your face. Yeah. Well, we will get to this point, but what I could advance is grammar is something that shouldn't be so prohibitive, right? Or being so afraid of committing grammatical mistakes, because they happen, and they happen a lot, especially when speaking. But I would also like to continue this commentary, this introduction, by talking about learning English in learning languages, because both Gabi and I, we have studied, we have taught classes in different schools, so we have had some considerable experience with different methodologies, and then with our specialization, we have seen um, different ways to approach the language, and also how that happened throughout history, right? So, how this development of grammar, the relationship of learning the language and grammar evolved throughout history. And then, what I would like to mention is this pendulum that happens, because we have courses and methodologies that they go either 100% grammar, so they are obsessed by grammar, they are obsessed by grammar rules, they are obsessed by the structure, and they get limited by that. And then we could mention, for example, the case of French. French, for every rule you learn, there are a bunch of exceptions that you should take into consideration. So the rule doesn't necessarily apply to every single situation. There are some exceptions, right? So when you focus obsessively on grammar, you enter fundamentally in a rabbit hole that has no end, because once you learn something, the abstract structure of how to use it, you need also to learn the exceptions that are connected with it. So this is one perspective: courses and methodologies that they are 100% grammar.
Can I make some observation about that?
Yeah.
I have already taught many students that came from this background, like they were they were really obsessed about grammar rules, and I could notice that because every time that I would tell them about uh, um, a simple rule, like for example, you need to use this auxiliary because this is an action verb in the basic form. Okay, then they get that for life, forever. Like, oh my god, so I always do that every time there is an action verb in the basic form. I use this auxiliary, so they end up I don't know, they end up stuck
Becoming, yeah, exactly. So we
because it's
see.
not always like
Yeah,
that.
it is the case that grammar becomes prohibitive, right? It becomes limiting, and this is no good. On the other perspective, we have methodologies and courses that they completely ignore grammar, and and also some teachers online, some courses online. They promise you that you will be fluent in the language just by listening, and then so no grammar, just pure exposition will be enough. And then what I would have to say about this is that that's not always the case, especially for people that are that they need to start using the language. As we spoke previously, that grammar is the structure, it is the form of the language. If you are just exposed to the language without any idea of the background of it, about the what is behind the curtains, your English can become a little bit um, flabby. It can become a little bit disjointed. It can become uh, formulas without an exact form, that everything is together, everything is mixed, and this can become confusing to the learner, right? So we see that obsession with not having grammar in any case can also become a defect, because then we have deficiency. In one, we have excess of grammar, obsession with grammar. On the other, it is a deficiency of form, it is a deficiency of structure. So that's why we are having this conversation, because we will present the arguments for and against grammar. So how grammar should be used, why it is relevant, and on the other hand, how grammar can become, instead of a helper, it can become an obstacle. And then we will synthesize this into a suggestion of how we can study English and become fluent in the language. And even this reflection is not only for English, but we will contextualize for that. It can serve for any language. And how we can approach grammar in our stimulus with the language.
Yeah, yeah. While you were speaking, anyways, guys. So before I comment what I will comment, stick here, stick to this live, stay here until the end because we will find a way to help you out and suggest some alternatives, not to be either obsessed and paranoid about grammar, no, or uh, I don't know, with a grammar deficiency, as Mateus has just said,
Yeah,
like lack of,
formless
yeah,
language. Yeah, it's
without a
something
without a shape, like something like a gel.
exactly like an amoeba.
Yeah, slime, like slime.
Yeah,
You don't want your English to
to
look like
be
slime.
like a slime. Yeah, something formless
Yeah.
and shapeless.
And by the way, I have noticed because they all come to us, right? After having traveled abroad, lived abroad, experienced studying in other language courses, these students, these language learners, they come to us to Speak Now's Academy, and they just want to find a way to give a shape to their English because their English is not in shape, not in good shape. They know, they are familiar, very familiar sometimes with the language. They like to express themselves in English. They sound good. Yeah, they sometimes have a good pronunciation, but still they are so hesitant. Yeah, they are so afraid because they were never focusing on understanding the structures and why they are for, and I believe this is really for both cases. If you are obsessed with grammar and you are learning English, or if you are eliminating grammar of your life with that fixed mindset that you will never need it, stay here because we have a solution for you.
Exactly, exactly. So it is this idea. Let us. The first part of our conversation is this introduction of discussing what grammar is, and this idea of deficiency and excess concerning grammar. And now we move forward to the second part of our argument, that it is to think about arguments that are pro grammar. They
Mhm.
say why grammar is relevant and why grammar is something that you should at least
Consider.
have some contact with, be in touch.
Exactly.
The first one, Gabi, is this idea that, especially for beginners, grammar can help in comprehension. Grammar can help in comprehending what's going on fundamentally, why we say things the way we say, why we construct the sentence with I am fine. So the person can feel more secure, um, be in contact with the language, because since grammar increases the possibility of comprehend what the person um, is interacting with, the person feels more confident. Yes, so grammar helps in comprehending more what we use, how we use, and when we use.
We have some comments in the chat.
Hello,
uh,
guys.
Mateus and Angela, they are here. They are watching us since
Kisses,
the beginning.
kisses.
Kisses
Mateus,
in the
Angela,
heart.
kisses in your heart.
Uh-huh. And they have some interesting comments I would like to bring to you, Mateus. Angela asked her uh, if her English is no amoeba, if she's an amoeba, if her English is amoeba like. And I said no, because she's getting little by little more familiar with the grammar structures, right? She's still in a beginner level of acquiring the language. And
Mhm. Yeah, what I would say actually that the amoeba English
yeah,
is not usually in the beginning. I
yeah,
believe
well,
that amoeba is more for people that they have uh, got in touch with the language, usually through games, usually through movie
traveling.
series. They have got in touch with the language. They know some words, they know how to construct, but they do not know exactly what is going on,
Yeah,
right? Why they are saying this, um, when to use that.
it's like
So
you are intermediate, but you still you are still not sure.
Yeah, you have advanced some levels in English, but then
Yeah,
the base, the structure is still created on a very slippery terrain. It's something
exactly.
that can. It is a. It's similar to um, a castle of cards. Yeah,
Hmm.
a house of cards. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
serious suggestion, everybody.
wow, it's an amazing. It's an amazing. It is this idea of it's very weak, the structure is very weak, the construction. Then this is what I would call a moeba English, that it is
Hmm.
formless, shapeless. Not that this is necessarily bad. That's not my idea. It is
Hmm.
that if the person that has this vocabulary and has, for example, this castle of cards, focuses a little bit on grammar, it will substantially potentialize what the
Yeah.
person already knows, because grammar can potentialize what you know. Grammar can become a limiter depending how you use it, but it can certainly potentialize your development in the language. Yes.
Hmm.
um, and this, Gabi, brings us to our second argument for
Uh-huh.
grammar, pro grammar, programmer, like a, yeah, and
Programmer, no,
yeah,
trying to defend, yeah, why
why
we,
grammar is
what,
relevant. Yes, we are
yeah.
focusing now on why grammar is relevant, and after we will focus on how grammar can be dangerous. So the first argument is that grammar helps in comprehension. And then in second, grammar can provide the student, the alpinist, the individual, with structure, as we have been saying, and variety.
Hmm.
Because then the person is not limited to one type of communication, just speaking in the present, for example,
Hmm. Hmm.
or just using will for the future. But the person is familiar to how to use the talk, how to talk about routine, and then the person will use simple present. How the person can talk about things that she think will happen using the model verb will. Objectives that the person has and plans, so that the person knows how to use I'm going to do this, I'm going to do
Hmm.
that. How to talk about past, how to talk about overlapping actions, how to compare, contrast. So then the person develops variety of
Hmm.
argumentation. It's not
Hmm.
simply a, a, a really unidimensional use of the language, because you can
Hmm.
build vocabulary, build vocabulary, build vocabulary and exposition, and not know exactly how to put this together.
Hmm.
So
And this
then
happens a lot.
yeah, this the grammar will help you organizing this, it will help harmonizing this on your mind.
Hmm. And feel a solid base on which you can construct your ideas to express yourself. I see this happening a lot in the beginning of the alpinist journey. Everybody feels everybody who already had some English before, had already studied, but still feels a lot insecure, or repetitive. Yeah, it's always repeating the same structures that are more comfortable for them, and this is okay, but I mean, as we could say in French, you develop more repertoire, yeah, more repertoire, yeah, a more variety, as you said, exactly.
Exactly. uh,
And Mateus Martins has made another really interesting comment. He said that I believe you have suggested, as we always do, we suggest people to do exactly what he said he does. He studies grammar. He said, when I study grammar, I write the structure of what I studied in my with my daily life.
exactly, Mateus is already showing us how we can use grammar. This idea of when grammar becomes internalized. But let's not put the cart before the horses.
Exactly.
We will get there.
We
And
will get there.
the last argument for programmer. So the first one, it helps in the comprehension. Second, it gives you structure and variety in your argumentation. And third, and now the third argument, why grammar is important. It is this idea that it gives you the foundation, right? It solidifies the foundation. It is, for example, building, constructing a building, right? A
Mm-hmm.
building with some floors or a house. You will
Uh-huh.
need the structure, right? You will
Yeah.
need some pillars to sustain the material that will cover it. Maybe it's made of wood, maybe it's made of concrete, maybe it's made of bricks,
Mm-hmm.
but you will need the foundation to sustain the structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
To sustain the continuation in the resistance of the house. Otherwise, the house, as the story of the three little pigs. The first
Exactly.
little pig, he built a house that was made of. Do you remember?
Of hay,
Yeah, and the second one made a house made of
made of
wood,
wood,
of yeah, of branches, I think.
sticks. I'm not.
Sticks,
I don't
yeah.
remember it. There are different versions for the
Yeah,
story,
and
but
the last one he built a house that was
made of brick.
made of brick with concrete, so
Yeah.
it had a strong foundation. And when the wolf came, that house was not destroyed. So this is what I think can happen with people that do not focus any attention on structure. When the wolf appears, the wolf would be the situation that they need to use the language for
Mm-hmm.
real, with a
For
real
real.
person in a job interview, while they are traveling, or when they find the need, they
Mm-hmm.
can get stuck because, or they can feel a little bit afraid. So
Mm-hmm.
then
Paralyzed by
the
panic.
foundations will help. So that's why grammar
Yeah.
is important. It gives us the foundation to understand what we are doing. And I also believe, Gabi, that studying grammar, if you study it correctly, saves you time.
Yeah, and makes you more confident as
Yeah,
well.
and it saves you time in the development of the language because
Mhm.
instead of needing 6 months to learn a series of structures through passive exposition,
Mm-hmm.
you condense that in maybe 2 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I believe it can help. So then we conclude here our arguments for grammar, pro
Yeah.
grammar, why grammar is relevant. Commentaries, Gabi?
I guess we could move on and point out the negative aspects of studying grammar. As we said in the beginning, there are a few, and we should also pay attention to that because, of course, grammar will give you more variety, more confidence. It will give you a solid structure on which you can build up your ideas, and in real situations give you um, uh, less hesitation to express yourself. You will feel more ready if you study grammar in the right way. By the end of the life, we will give you some suggestions on how to do that.
Hmm.
But first, I think it's really necessary to point out
The dangers.
the dangers of grammar,
Yes.
how it can become your enemy, because
Yeah,
you cannot, and this is the answer to the title of the episode today. Yeah, you cannot learn English just by studying grammar.
exactly. There is that common saying, that popular saying, the difference between medicine and poison is the quantity, not the substance. So the same thing happens with grammar. Grammar can be a medicine, but it can also be poison. So why grammar? Now, the argument that we discussed previously, why grammar is important, and now is um, how grammar can be dangerous. Yes, and the first part, the first argument on this next stage of our reflection concerns two types of language, of interaction with the language, two type of people. The first one is what we call language knowers.
They know the language.
They know about the language. They know what is present perfect. They know what is a noun. They know what is simple present. They know what is an auxiliary verb. They
Do
know
you
what is an
relate,
action
guys?
verb.
Do you think you are this person? You know about the rules, the
But no,
grammar rules?
but they need to know what are the other type.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah, because you can know all of this and not necessarily be a language knower. Yeah.
Hmm.
The idea is a language knower is someone that knows the structure, that is familiar with the backgrounds of the language, but this
Hmm.
person does not know how to use it. It is a very common symptom of
Hmm.
students that we receive that they have studied in their high school,
Hmm.
where the teacher was presenting past perfect for them.
Advanced structures.
Yeah, when I was finishing my university, I participated during my internship. I
Hmm.
participated in a high school that the teacher was teaching them past perfect, but they couldn't even speak in English
Like say
anything.
their names, their where they were
No,
from, and
they
have a
were
first basic
afraid. They
conversation.
were really afraid of using the language. But she
Hmm.
was teaching them an advanced structure
Hmm.
without having them even produce on the basic ones. So then they were studying and they were becoming language knowers. This is a language knower.
Hmm.
The other type of people, it is the language user, and this is different. The language user is a person that you can know the rules, you can know what is a auxiliary verb, you can know what is a modal verb, you can know the structures, but your objective is not simply to know, your objective is to use, and knowing
Hmm.
that helps you in your practice. So, returning to the previous example, we could say that a language user could be studying past perfect, but because it was already in the necessity of
Hmm.
using that structure, because I believe, Gabi, that necessity precedes the development of the grammar. I think the person needs to feel the necessity or needs to feel some sort of discomfort to think, well, with what I know now, it's not being possible to produce what I want to say.
Hmm.
Then this necessity will guide you to a specific structure. And then once you learn that, there you've got variety because
Hmm.
it was not simply to know abstractly the rule, but it was for you to increment your
Hmm.
usage of the language. Then, in this case, you are a language user, that you
Hmm.
use the language and then you learn the grammar to increase your usage. It is like when we are playing games.
To be able to use for a specific purpose, yeah, of communication. You,
Mm,
you to communicate that thing.
yeah, it is like playing a game.
Uh-huh.
We are playing the game and maybe we know the basic commands,
Uh-huh.
but we want now to know more. We know maybe how, if we are playing soccer, Mateus Martins, this argument is for you. If we are playing FIFA, for example,
Uh-huh.
and we want to know how we can kick the ball a little bit differently, or
Hmm.
how we can make some tricks, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or if we are playing a game as The Sims, Gabi, for you that you
I
enjoy,
love it. Yeah, I learned a lot of
you,
English from it.
you want to know how you can build a part of the house differently, or how
Mm-hmm.
you can design that differently, because the usage of that in a way asked you to become
Mm-hmm.
better. This is a language user, not a
Mm-hmm.
language learner.
All right, guys. So now you can comment then in the chat. Which do you think you relate more to? Do you think you study a lot about many different structures? You know about that grammar structure. You know why it is for, but still you have not an
Motivation,
opportunity. Sorry.
motivation,
You have
necessity.
no necessity to use it in any moment, and you because of that maybe you don't have the chance to experiment and check if you can really use it, or are you the language user? Yeah, you experience necessity to use, to say something, to explain something, and then if you don't know, you learn that grammar that will allow you to say that. uh, One or two, yeah. Number one, grammar knower. Number two, grammar user. Which are you? You can comment in the chat. I think I most of the alpinists, I guess, I believe all the alpinists that are here are language users, because I mean, the name of the academy says everything, right? We we immediately find in the lessons a necessity to communicate something, and from that point on, we learn how to use a structure to accomplish that objective. Do you think when you were learning English, Mateus, do you think you were more a knower or a user?
When I was learning the language, I think I've always been a user,
Yeah,
because
lucky us, me too.
I was always in touch with the language, and then watching things. And when I started studying the language per se in an
Mhm,
English course, the methodology provided me with the tools also to practice the language and use it, right? And I was always wanting to know more, because I wanted to speak differently. And I remember
mhm,
once I learned a structure, any structure, I would use that repeated times a lot until until I absorbed, until I acquired that. But then, Gabi,
mhm.
let's continue. Otherwise, we won't be able to wrap up our reflection. The
All right.
second part. So the first one, why how grammar can be dangerous. It is the difference between to know about the language and
Yeah.
know how to use the language, right? Two different things. Know about, language knower. To know how to use it, language user. So
Hmm.
try to be always a language user, not simply a language knower.
Yeah, and the next one is a little bit related to what we said in the beginning, yeah, about being obsessed with the grammar rules, and how it can stop you from expressing yourself. Yeah, you can be a lot hesitant, but not only that, I mean, what are the other problems of being obsessed with grammar?
Yeah, so this is connected with the idea of being obsessed with grammar generates perfectionism of wanting to speak perfectly all the time. And of course, perfection is something that we should aim at, right? We should
Hmm.
want to become better and better and better in what we do. But then this can become a paranoid compulsion for being perfect. And people that follow this are usually people that they are really afraid of committing mistakes.
Yeah.
However, committing mistakes is fundamental, right? Because if you are afraid to commit mistakes, if you're afraid of committing mistakes, you will try to avoid them. But by avoiding them, you limit the experimental relationship, the playful spirit, the creative usage of the language, because this
Mhm.
is also what will make you feel, what will make you learn more, what will make you speak better. It is this, in a way, childlike experimentation, this playful interaction of, I want to speak like this, or maybe I want to start using this kind of expression, right? And if you are uh, paralyzed by fear of committing mistakes, you will
Shiver.
yeah, you will interact with the language maybe in a too serious manner, maybe too
Hmm.
afraid, feeling you want to feel too secure, and that's okay. It's fine to respect also your limits a little, to respect your time, to have patience with yourself. However, yeah, we need to be careful not to build a bubble
Mm.
of fake perfectionism, because perfectionism in reality does not exist. Perfection in
There's no
reality,
such a thing as someone who can speak English perfectly, right?
exactly. Natives commit mistakes, fluent people commit mistakes, and that's completely fine. That's
Hmm.
completely fine. So that's why studying just grammar, the second part of studying just grammar, can be dangerous. It generates fear of committing mistakes. It generates a person that wants to be too perfectionist, and this person needs to let it go a little, to relax a little, to develop, the
The playful spirit.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah. And
exactly,
this is something that we try to do as teachers as well, I believe, when someone
totally.
says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like I made a mistake. I'm a student, right? And I made a mistake." And I say, "Oh, sorry. I forgot the third person." Or, "Oh, sorry, I forgot the verb to be." "Oh, sorry, I forgot the word." No, man. I mean, you don't need to be sorry. This is okay, really. But nobody ever told them so. So when you are in school, people tell you that making mistakes is wrong. Yeah, if you don't know something, you are dumb. You are less intelligent, and we are we absorb that somehow. I mean, inevitably, we come from this background. Yeah, this is school time. Is still haunting us. I guess since we were little, we were told that this is not correct. You should do this correctly. It's incorrect. Wrong, wrong. Wrong is bad, but wrong is part of the process.
Exactly, to become a master in something, to become advanced in something, the path is full of mistakes. And
Yeah.
then, to conclude this idea of how grammar can be dangerous, it is the third argument is people that they are obsessed with grammar and they are limited by grammar. They consider studying the language as an obligation. They consider
Mm,
it as a something that is they need to do, and something that is not good, something that is not fun, because studying grammar is very boring. It is
yeah.
extremely disstimulating, right? So that's the third argument. Studying grammar can be incredibly boring. Studying just grammar,
Mhm.
decontextualized, a grammar that is not connected with you, a grammar that you do not want, that you don't feel the necessity to use, that does not generate
You cannot study it
motivation.
just because. Yeah, you should not study a grammar structure just because. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to have a reason. You need to have a purpose why you are doing that. The most important things when learning a language are two things: motivation and self-discipline.
Mhm.
Motivation to understand where you want to get, why you are doing this, and how that will help you in your life, both personal and professional. And on the other hand, it is self discipline. Self discipline to every day for a series of days, for a considerable time, separating a time of your life to sit at your desk with your notebook, with your laptop or computer, with your tablet or phone, whatever it is, and diving into that and focusing into that for at least 30 minutes every day, with the ideal being 40 to 50 minutes. That's self-discipline, which is fundamental. So motivation to know where you want to get and why that's important and how you will benefit from that, and also making the study fun, making the study
Interesting,
interesting,
fun.
because it's easier to be motivated to do something when we are having fun doing that. It's very hard to be motivated to do something if we are not enjoying the process.
Or if we don't know why we're doing that first of all,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And then if you have low motivation, you need to have an incredibly high self discipline, which
Mm-hmm.
people normally don't have. So you should balance a little bit of discipline, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of discipline. Motivation, discipline. Motivation to look to the future and feel the emotion of how that will be positive, and discipline to sacrifice maybe activities that they are easier, they are more comfortable, to go there, study, challenge yourself intellectually, challenge yourself linguistically, and become better and better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. I guess uh, probably if you are watching us, you have already heard something almost like that in your life. Like you need to have motivation to study, or you need to have self discipline to study. But how those two things can feed each other, maybe this is something that nobody ever told you, and we are doing that specifically in this second episode of the series, what no one tells you about learning English. Well, exactly, if you think about that, right? If you have the self-discipline, that little time that you reserve and you study and you, oh my gosh, and you challenge yourself and you finally do something that you didn't even expect you could do, like you you overcome something that was before a barrier for you in the language. Now you can do it. For example, you could record a video talking about your life, talking about yourself, or talking about the place where you live. Then you get motivation from having done that. I mean, you don't need a lot to continue motivated. You need to take uh, baby steps, or a little every day will make you more motivated, and being more motivated will consequently make you more self-disciplined. There's no much of a secret in that, but that's a secret formula for some.
Exactly, I completely agree. It is mixing the ingredients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Motivation will take you a long way, but not, but it won't. Without self-discipline, it will not take you very far, perhaps, or it will not take you to the end of the journey. Because
Mm-hmm.
some days motivation is something that is very fluid, right? Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. And then self-discipline, it is a conductor wire. It's a more stable uh, aspect that can uh, help you on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. And then now we get to the conclusion of our argument. Time flies when we are having fun. So we have introduced what is grammar, and we have talked about this idea of 100% grammar or 0% grammar. This was our introduction. We have learned the arguments for grammar, why grammar can be beneficial, and then we discuss it. It's good for comprehension. We talked about this idea of grammar adding structure and variety, and we also talked about Grammar builds the foundation that will hold your language together, especially your second language.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also talked about why grammar can be dangerous. This idea of language users versus language knowers, people that know about the language but do not know how to use. We talked about that obsession with grammar generates perfectionism, and perfectionism generates fear of making mistakes, and fear of committing mistakes generates a slower development, a more serious interaction with the language. It does not allow you to be so creative and experimental. And we have
Mm-hmm.
also talked about this idea that grammar is not so fun, right? So it's hard to be motivated and to have discipline if you are just doing like studying grammatical rules. That's not uh, intriguing. And now to talk about our conclusion, I would like to give a distribution of how much grammar should take in the language studies, because if we think about, there are two things in the language, that is form, structure, and that is content, right? That is
What is
substance.
content? Sorry.
Substance. Imagine
Subs-
this cup.
Mhm.
This cup has a form, right? It is a little bit. It's a fatty cup, not such a big cup. It is circular in its shape. So this is the form, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Mm-hmm.
then we've got the substance, the content, which is water, right? So then,
Water.
water is the substance inside the form.
Mm-hmm.
We should consider grammar as the form, as the cup,
Mm-hmm.
and vocabulary, words,
Mm.
as the content, right? What is inside. So grammar represents 20% of the language. Words represent 80% of the language.
Mhm.
Form 20%, substance 80%. So this is a distribution that I think is interesting to consider with the language. Grammar should occupy around 20% of your contact with English. And the other 80%, it is listening to people speaking in English, music, books, articles, conversations with a teacher or with
Mhm.
someone or with a group. This is 80%. That's why, for example, at Speak Now, we divide fundamentally like this: 80% practice and using the language, and
Mhm.
20% talking about the structure and understanding why and how we speak like that, how and why we use it. So we don't obsess over grammar, nor completely eliminate it. We
Mhm.
simply give it the importance that it can have. That is fundamentally 20% of 100% with the contact with the language. The other
Mhm.
80 being focused on listening, speaking, reading, and writing, right? Using the language,
Mhm.
understanding, comprehending, and producing.
I see. I see. You made me think of something like the method that I was first working within was within teaching English, right? The first contact that I had, I believe the methodology in that at that time that I was familiar with, the first methodology in which I taught in was a lot based on audiolingual method. Yeah, so the learner is speaking, is using the language. All right, because they need to communicate. But they are really creating things. Are they really using the language meaningfully, or are they just repeating? I mean,
Repeating empty sentences.
yeah, things that don't even, that cannot even relate to their reality. How efficient is that? I mean, you need grammar to be meaningful somehow when we think of
Right. Yeah,
using
yeah,
the language,
totally,
right?
totally. If you can connect the study of grammar and the study of the form, 20%, with a meaningful interaction with the words, that this combination potentializes, because you are receiving auditory stimulus, visual stimulus, emotional stimulus,
Mhm.
intellectual ideas. You are remembering about your day, or thinking about that and expressing your opinion. That is much more meaningful and effective than simply repeating sentences that are
Ready made.
decontextualized or empty of meaning for the person that is using it.
Hmm.
And then, second part is this idea of theory versus practice.
Hmm.
And then I want to return to the idea of the traffic rules,
Hmm.
because Gabi, can you learn how to drive just by reading the traffic rules or the manual of your car?
I don't think so. No.
Exactly. We cannot learn simply by theory. Can
Hmm.
we learn how to play the piano simply by reading the music sheet?
No, of course not. No.
We need then what?
We need to practice. That's why we have the practical lessons in driving school, and we have piano lessons with a teacher that will help you not only read the the music sheet, but how to perform that song.
Exactly, right. So it is this importance of grammar, of this importance of the theory, but also the practice. And the practice should occupy a bigger time than the
Mhm,
theory. And
mhm,
then to wrap up, we
mhm,
return to what Martin said, that he
mhm,
contextualizes grammar. He contextualizes grammar for his life, for his activities, for his day to day, for his opinions. And that's the secret. That's
mhm,
how we conclude. If I could summarize in a short idea, would be, yes, grammar is important, but we should not study it exclusively. We
mhm,
should focus it 20% of our study, the rest 80% using the language and getting in touch with the language. And also, uh, when once we get in touch with grammar, putting that in context, putting that in the context that for us is relevant.
mhm. That is connected to what our reality is, yeah, what we experience in life.
Fundamentally, if you are
Mhm,
learning simple present, talking about your daily life, what you sometimes do, what you always do, what you never do, what someone that you like does, what someone that you like doesn't do, what someone that you don't like does, what someone that you don't like doesn't do.
now our audience is getting confused.
Yeah, talking about people, if you are using that is and that are, you can talk about your house, you can talk about your city.
Mhm.
Verb to be, how you can introduce yourself, how you can talk
Describe
about,
things.
describe things, describing people. So
Mhm.
using reality to produce the language. And that's it. Our time is finished. Wow,
Oh,
it's 2
yeah.
p.m. Uh,
Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for watching us. This was the second episode. Thanks for staying until the end. We will make sure to continue bringing relevant content for the next episodes in this series. Next week, we have the third episode. And after that, not in the following week, but in the next one, there will be the last episode in this series.
exactly. I would like to say Thank you, Gabi, for the reflection. Thank you,
I thank you.
people that have been in touch with us while we were uh, thinking
Participating
together
in the
about
chat.
that.
Yeah.
Best wishes, guys.